Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me. This week, we're doing a continuation of setting up an Etsy shop with Suze, Emina, and she runs the Etsy shop Ruby Suze. Now we have a name for it, Ruby Suze Art. So back in November, for anyone who doesn't know, if this is the first episode you're listening to, we started doing a live walkthrough of Suze building out her brand new Etsy shop. And so in November, we talked about just some very foundational things, setting goals for her Etsy shop, reasons why she was choosing Etsy over other marketplaces. And so anyway, in setting up her Etsy shop, we talked through setting up her Etsy account, picking her shop name, which is Ruby Suze Art. That's RUBY SUZ or ZE if you're across the pond like she is, art. And also getting her shop settings all in place and filling out all the shop sections or, pertinent sections. And then we briefly talked about product pricing. So that was back in November. And we are going to pick up from there and continue with next steps in, well, right now it's not setting up, but now we're going to talk more about optimizing her Etsy shop and her listings. But before we do that, Suze, welcome back to the podcast. How have you been?
I have been great. Thanks so much. I'm excited to have this conversation because I feel like I can speak about all the things that have happened. And hopefully the listeners will be encouraged as well.
Good. Well, let's start with that because you opened your Etsy shop on the 4th of November and we are recording this in early December, but folks aren't going to hear it till after we record this recording. And as of today, you already have 44 sales in your Etsy shop and the busy selling season isn't over yet. So how have things been going? What have you been doing in your shop? And did you hit all the marks that we laid out last time?
So it's been really, really interesting journey. I think I heard on your podcast, I can't remember which episode it was. I really should find out because I need to go back just to listen to it. Mm-hmm. But somebody talked about the fact that Etsy makes a sound anytime you make a sale.
Yeah. Yes.
And I remember hearing that thinking, oh, I can't wait to hear that sound.
Yes.
So after the 4th of November, opening the shop and just kind of waiting like, oh, when is it going to make the sound? That was really cool. And then when I made my first sale, it was really exciting. And then ever since now, like the whole house, when they hear the sound, like everyone's like, oh, we made a sale, we made some money, especially the children. They're like, yes, one more step to get us to Disneyland, So it's really encouraging, and it's really I have a great sense of pride as well, packaging all the items. So it's been really, really exciting, and actually seeing a review that is not from a friend, is not from someone I know, and someone really excited to receive my product. It still excites me today, still shocks and surprises me nicely.
Nice.
So that's happened. In terms of milestones, I'd hoped to have sold out of the cards, and then I kind of talked to myself and thought, is that really realistic? Mm-hmm. So but I've sold a lot more cards. I guess I kind of thought I had low expectations. I thought, friends and family would buy them and, that way I'd make sales. But these are a lot of the sales I've made are people I don't know. I don't know who they are. And I don't know. My friend was like, why are you so surprised by that? I don't know why. I just assumed that it'd be people that seen me on maybe Instagram or friends and family or friends of friends, but these people I don't know who they are, and the fact that they're buying my stuff, it was really, really exciting. I ran into a few problems with a particular print on demand supplier. And I had been really specific in choosing a print on demand supplier that wasn't based abroad. I wanted someone based here because I felt like I'd have greater insight into the shipping and communication and greater control over the product. And every product I sell is really well designed, and I've got really a lot of input into it. It's not as detached as, say, overseas in China or somewhere else. But they seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth. So and that's been a problem. And having to find out, okay, how do I do a refund? So I had to do a cancellation and a refund. That was a bit of a process, just trying to find out how do I do that, and ensuring that people know that that I've refunded and cancellation, and making sure that the customer still understands why. So it's not that I've just issued a refund without any information. And I think the other thing that I found a bit tricky is just managing. I think you've mentioned it before. Managing an Etsy shop with a full-time job is actually really intense. I didn't realize how intense Etsy is. Moving your orders from new to in progress to completed. So I've ended up issuing a dispatch note after they've actually received the item, just because I didn't realize that I had to click dispatched or completed. So yeah, it's been a real big learning journey, but I've really loved it, and it's given me the bug. Now I'm like, okay, what else could I sell? And items that I thought weren't going to sell really sold really well.
Interesting.
So I had done my cards have been selling really well. I've got lots of views, and it's a bit addictive. It's a bit like Instagram when you're checking it. You're constantly checking, how many people have visited my shop and how many people have liked and favorited. And I didn't know that you could add a coupon, like to entice people who've favorited your shop. You can communicate with them. It's been really, really, really amazing. And now it's like, oh, okay. I can do more. This has given me information and data that's enabled me to say, okay, this is what's working. And yeah, it's really, I can see why somebody would be like, yeah, I'm going to make this my full-time job, because it really is, you could do that. You really, really could. Sorry, I can ramble on for ages more.
No, this is all great information. I'm just taking it all in, because you've mentioned some good points that I would like to just expand on for other new sellers and maybe other sellers who perhaps haven't run into some of the issues that you ran into, before we talk about just some next steps of things that you can do. So the first thing is, congratulations on the sales from strangers. I know those are the best. We love our family, but when a stranger buys from you, someone you absolutely don't know, there's just no feeling like that. Like, whoa, this person out there in the wide world wants my thing.
Yeah, and it's really encouraging. Thank you so much for your encouragement. But it is such a beautiful feeling. And I had I think several overseas, so people in America, and then I was like, oh wait, hold on, I need to figure out the shipping. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, international shipping is always an educational process, regardless of where you are, where you're based. When you get your first international order, you have to get schooled in all things international shipping. So then the other thing is your print on demand. So when the vendor that you were working with disappeared and you couldn't get in touch with them, what did you do? Have you found a new vendor to replace them, or did you pull your print on demand products?
So I'm going to have to, as we speak, I'm pulling the products because I tried, for some reason, I think the reason why they were selling so well is because they're quite unusual. So they are metal Christmas ornaments. And because of my artwork, I think because there was a lack of, there's not as many African American designs, that's what I think was selling. And that's why a lot of people were favoriting them and buying them. And I can't find anybody else who could do that product for me and dispatch it the way I want it to be. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull. And it's so sad because I can see that it's really pulling a lot of people to my shop.
Yeah.
And it's such a heartbreak. But then it makes me think, oh, actually, because it was a good tester, my idea was to actually invest in the equipment, to actually make this. So actually, I'm not looking at it as a negative experience. I'm looking at it as a really positive one, because now that I've tested it, I know that actually, if I make the investment in this equipment, it can actually pay off in the long run. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull it until I find, another way of producing it. But I'm still really, really, I'm really happy with it. The process.
Okay. So to me, it sounds like you're I don't want to say killing the goose that lays your golden egg, but essentially, why do you think you can't find another POD vendor till you get your own equipment?
I think because my main focus is doing it with someone in the UK, and even to find a POD vendor in the UK was quite a challenge. There weren't that many, or if they were, they're quite expensive. So to then price my product, I was like, this is not reasonable. However, I think I've realized with pricing, I've been too modest. So I was really scared that my cards would not sell because they were expensive in my eyes. But actually, it's not. I think I was being too modest with myself. There is a market that, just because I wouldn't necessarily buy it at that price, it doesn't mean anybody else is. And because you're a creative, I think creatives tend to be like, well, I wouldn't spend that, but that's because you know that you can make it.
Yes.
That's why you always you devalue yourself. So actually I think I need to kind of get away from that and just be like, this is a good product. If it doesn't sell at that price, then I can always change the price. But I shouldn't just look for something that's affordable. So at the moment, I think I'll have to keep looking. It took me a long time to find that. So I'm really disappointed that I can't keep that going. But I'll keep pushing. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, there are some vendors who, even though their headquarters are in the US, they have subsidiaries outside of the US, and I'm sure in the UK, where it's easy for them to fulfill orders. And I guess we can talk a bit more about that offline, but right off the bat, I want to say, if you can just write down these two and look into them and see if the types of products that you have to pull because of this are things that they can handle. So immediately to mind comes Cafe Press and Zazzle and Red Bubble.
Yeah, okay.
So those three, they do print on demand on a wider variety of products than certain other ones, and I know that they have international reach.
Yeah.
So you can check into those and see if in the meantime they might be able to fill your need. Because I understand, it's difficult if you're getting orders from people in the UK and they're they're being shipped from the US. So I'm pretty sure that these outfits have international outlets where they can do things,
Yeah.
from, different continents, and do those locally. The other thing I wanted to ask is, do you know exactly what equipment you need to invest in to bring the print on demand in-house?
Yeah, to a certain degree, I do. In another life, I was a teacher, and I was a teacher for over 10 years, and I taught design and technology. So I don't know what you would call it in America. I don't know whether you call it home tech. I don't know, but I taught um, um, teenagers, so secondary school, and I taught design and technology. So that was food technology, textiles, because that's what I studied.
Okay.
And I also taught woodwork. So I have some expertise in the actual, like the heat press. I understand the sublimation printer.
Yes.
I understand all of that. But my main thing was I know the kind of equipment I want to buy. It's the space, and also knowing that if I commit to this, it's the money as well, and making sure that it's actually going to work for me. So to a certain degree, I know what I need to buy, and I know how to use it. It's just, I think, initially I was like, okay, let me try it out first, because I think as a serial creative, I feel like I have this habit of jumping into something and then being like, oh, I'm not going to use it. And then I was like, no, I want to test it out first, and then take it forward from there. But yeah, I'll look into those other places you mentioned, and see if they can do something at least similar to what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And then also you might look into, and I know I've talked about this with other episodes with sellers who are based in the UK, but first I was going to say you might look into maker spaces, where artisans and artists can go to these. I know they have them here in the US, and I know that Anna Fine of Anna Fine Jewelry mentioned something like that as well, and she's based in the UK. And so these maker spaces, people can go in, and they have all kinds of equipment for artists. So they'll have kilns, and they'll have, heat presses, and they'll have, just things for different types of makers. And it's a shared space, so you can use their equipment and without having to invest in it yourself. Except, the only thing is you have to go somewhere to make what you're making. So I think it would work if you were going to do a batch of items.
Yeah.
And, just have them in your inventory to sell. So that's one thing. The other thing is and I talked with Anna about that in episode 285. So I'll link to the episodes that I mentioned for anyone else who wants to listen to them. So my first conversation with Suze was episode 288. I'll link to that. Anna's episode is 285. So I'll link to that. And then I talked with Lee Berry, and she does she pulled her print on demand in-house and does her own sublimation. And we talked all about that as well in episode 277. So those might be worth a listen, so you can hear how others are figuring out how to, get things done. And maybe just get some insight from what they're doing as well. Their processes might not work for you, but at least it will give you an idea of how they figured things out or are figuring things out too.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I would definitely check that out, because I think it's useful to, definitely the space would be great. I mean, if I could have a space and I could just disappear into it, that would be brilliant.
Yes.
Until I buy my dream home. But yeah, I think that sounds like that's really appealing.
Yeah.
As well. Kind of doing it in-house. it would what it would I mean it would help me if I could. I'd have more control, and in terms of profit and stuff like that, it'd probably work out a little bit more profitable if I could do it myself. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Okay, good. All right. So the next thing you mentioned was because of this, the issues with your POD vendor, you had to issue cancellations. One thing, and I don't know if everyone has access to this yet, but Etsy recently launched a new streamlined cancellation process. And I thought it was interesting you said you had to figure that out because honestly, their old way of issuing a refund and canceling an order was so tedious. Like it was so hard to figure
Oh,
out
really?
where to go and how to do it. How was it easy for you to figure out? Because maybe if it was, perhaps you have the new process in your
Yeah,
shop
I
manager.
I think I have the new one.
Okay.
Because it wasn't actually that hard. What I meant by figuring out was like, okay, you need to make a decision. What are you gonna do? And kind of
Okay.
figure it out. But the actual process wasn't hard. It was just more of a click. It was like, okay, this was the sale, and then I think
Yes.
I clicked on cancel, and then it said you had to select your reason for cancellation, and so I wrote a nice note and explained to the customer. But because I wasn't sure whether that note or how that note was going to go or be like sent, I also sent another one to her directly. So I
Okay.
wasn't, just to double check. I'd rather send too many messages apologizing
Yeah.
than
Not
not
enough.
have. So I wasn't sure whether that message, it wasn't clear to me at the time whether that message was going directly to her or whether that was me writing to Etsy to explain myself. So that's why I was like, do you know what? Let me just send it twice just to
Yeah.
make sure.
Okay.
So then the customer responded and was like, oh, thank you very much for letting me know.
Okay.
I hope things get resolved for you.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was that. So it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was. And especially I think sometimes, well, I was feeling that customers wouldn't I was expecting quite a lot of heat and a bit of anger, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. And I think I have to remind myself that majority of people are fine. Like majority of
Yes.
people are fine. If you're
Yeah.
if you're just really nice to people will be
Yeah.
nice to you. So
Exactly. And if you're upfront and honest about what's going on, most people are understanding and are reasonable. So I think you handled it the right way.
yeah.
The next thing you mentioned was managing your Etsy shop while working full time. Yes, it's not easy. Have you developed any systems or put any processes in place to help you just manage the transition between um, working full time during the day, and not just that, you have little ones as well, and
Mm.
you have a family, so
Mm-hmm.
that and then running your shop. Have you figured out some strategies to just help you streamline your day and your time? Are there any tools that you found useful, or would you like some recommendations on things? How's that?
I've I wish I'd sorted it all out. I haven't. I really struggled, I think, at one point because my day job is in the healthcare system, and because of everything that's happening, obviously with COVID-19, it really ramped up. And I really struggled to keep on top of, just the correspondence.
Yeah.
But what I found is kind of getting is because my routine changed. I was working from home, so at that point it was easy to get to the post office,
Yeah.
so I could quickly nip out. But then I had to go into work, so then actually finding um shipping and how to actually get that done. One thing that I found was, to save time, I could do all my shipping online. So I could pay for it online. I could write the label online with Royal Mail, which really helped me because then it meant that I wasn't queuing up for them to then enter it and all that stuff. It was literally, if I could then send anyone to the post office
Yes.
and that give them the item, and all that needed to be done was scan rather than waiting and then paying and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So that really helped.
Okay.
One thing I thought about next year was actually pre-packing my products.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because that would save time as well. Because what I was finding is that I'm trying to get dressed for work and I'll hear a ping go off, or, you know, doing the dinner or whatever it was. And then I have to factor in my head that I need to clear a space, because we live in a very tight 2-bed flat. I need to clear a space on the dining table, make sure there's no leftover dinner or breakfast, and pack the order. So I was like, okay, next year, I'm going to pack everything, especially if I'm selling them. I know that I'm selling them in packs of 5. So I wasn't selling individual cards. I'm selling them in packs of 5. That it makes more sense to have them pre-packed.
And they're always the same set of 5.
They're always the same set of 5.
Okay.
So I think, you know, I was like, well, if I've got some downtime between now and the new year, why not just pack everything up so that it's ready, so that it's easy for me just to reach and just have things in drawers. So I was like, okay, I'll do that next time, rather than, you know, that will save me time in the long run. Okay, yes, there's the initial outlay of time where I'd spend, you know, maybe half a day or a couple of hours packing each card, but actually in the long run it saves me time, because when you just have to pick and pack, isn't it, rather than having to individually, you know. So that helps. And then having someone else, either my husband or a friend, who can also have access to my Etsy. I think I'm going to try and get someone else to do that, so that, you know, they know the basics of what I'm doing. Because yes, I'm not getting like orders necessarily every day, but if I'm away doing something else, like full-time job or you know, with the kids, it helps to have an extra set of eyes who could do the admin for me. Like, I like to send everybody an individual note to say thank you for your order, and I'm packing it. So it'd be nice, although I noticed, I didn't realize at the time, it would have saved me time, that you can actually set an automated thank you. I was like, oh, that would have saved me time than me typing every single message. So I figured that out now, that you can send an automated thank you as soon as someone sends it, and also an automated dispatch note. So I was like, okay, that will save time as well. So I think, you know, doing things this way around was like, okay, next year Christmas, I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm going to know exactly, you know, how to do things. The other thing that I found for time was I got someone else to write my listings. So I found someone on Fiverr who would write my listings, who researched the competition, who researched what the popular words, and so I'd send all my pictures of my products and he wrote all the listings, and that just saved me time. So I didn't have to crack my head and start searching for searchable words and keywords, and didn't do that. So I just copied and pasted. I tweaked it a bit, and I'm glad I did, because the fact that I put African American into my cards, and a lot of my products, it really boosted up my views. So that helped with saving time and managing time. And then the other thing that helped was I also got someone to manage my Pinterest just to start it up. I found Fiverr a huge resource. It was just amazing, the amount of things I found on Fiverr. I found people who reposted or repinned my things, and that, I mean, I went from maybe 0 views on Pinterest to 25,000 monthly views in the space of weeks.
How much did you pay on Fiverr for?
So I think on Fiverr, I think I've spent for the Pinterest people anything from 0 to £10 to maybe £30, I think. But I did sporadic things. I was like, oh, that looks like a good deal, I'll do that. And then with the listings, he did, I think it was 3 or 4 listings for £10 or something like that. So the cost started to rack up a bit, but in my head I was like, I'd rather do this than spend the time. I just don't have the time to do it. I just closed my eyes, and I thought eventually I will notice the pattern of what he's doing.
Yes.
So
and then you
I
can
got to
replicate.
the point where I was like, Exactly. So I was like, no, actually, I'm buying my education. So him sending this, I'll be able to copy and paste and be like, okay, this works for me.
Right.
This doesn't work for me. So it's a long-term strategy. That's what I did.
And did he ask you about keywords, or all he did was look at your product and then figure out what keywords to use?
It was a really good conversation. He's a really good seller. So I could have suggested keywords to him, but he does the keyword research and writes the titles and writes the tags.
Okay.
And he researches up to 10 competitors.
Nice.
So for 2 listings, he was charging $5.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad for 2 listings. And then for standard list, and then the next one, because they do different gigs. So the next one up for $10, he did 5 listings.
Okay.
I felt like it worked out well. For me personally, I thought it was really good.
Okay.
Um,
Did now, how are you doing with the tags? Are you doing the tags yourself, or does the service include tags?
So the service includes tags. But I do edit, like I said, I edited 1 or 2 because so that I could have African American in there. So 1 or 2, I was like, not sure whether that's really relevant. So I just edited it. I did it as an experiment to see if that would make a difference. And it did. It really did. And so I've left that. And, that's when I look at my analytics, those are the highest rated viewed items. So anything that's got African American in it is higher, most, it's got the highest views,
right,
the highest orders, the highest favorites, so I was like, I think that works, even though it's tailored for a UK market. It seems that term, because at first I was just putting Black Jesus or Black African cards or something, and it wasn't really working. But then I thought, actually, it's an American-based website. As in, I think Etsy is originally American, if I'm right or wrongly. Yeah. So I was like, actually, it makes more sense to write African American rather than, and use a bit more like American terms, because I think that's what will happen.
Yeah, because I think that's more likely what people would use to do the search.
Yeah.
Wow, good. That's excellent. I've seen those listings on Fiverr before, but I've never actually paid for one. So it's nice to hear that you did go for it and it was helpful, and you're using that to educate yourself as well. Because this is it's being done by a seller who I guess has experience with this. So that's good. And I like that you're not afraid to spend money to save yourself time, because I don't know if you've heard, in the entrepreneur community, and this is something I've been hearing a lot more lately, is when you're starting a business, you either are going to have more time than money or more money than time. And or you can spend money to save your time, or something like that. I'm probably messing it up, but what you're doing is an example of that. Is you're spending some money to save yourself some time, and just help you make more progress. Sometimes, as entrepreneurs, and when we're starting new ventures, because we don't know whether or not it's going to be successful, we don't want to throw a lot of money, or sometimes any money, at something, because we don't know what we're going to get out of it. But sometimes it helps to put some money towards something and see, if it does, give you a return on that investment or not. If it doesn't, then you can always stop the spending. And if it does, you've not only saved yourself time, but you've probably also helped boost, your income just by putting some money towards that. So having someone else help with your listings and your Pinterest. And Pinterest is, it's just great traffic for Etsy. So I think that for sure was money well spent.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, I've been an advocate of Fiverr for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I've used it for various different things, logos and things like that, just because, like I said, it's out of time. And also just sometimes I just don't know things and I just want to try. Especially because I'm like, oh, it's £5. What, £5 is a cup of coffee if I think about it, and maybe
Right.
so I just think, oh, let's just try. It might work, it might not work. So I
Yeah.
did try um someone to drive traffic to my store.
Uh-huh.
That definitely helped. There was a
Okay.
lot of views. A lot of views came from that. I'm
Do
not
you know
sure.
if any of them translated into actual
Yeah,
sales?
I'm not sure whether it translated into actual sales, but one thing I did notice, I was going to try it again, was that I was like, actually, after that, not immediately, um, like as in the week that or the day that they did it, but I think the week after, I started to get a lot of favorites.
Okay.
So I'm wondering whether the views helped it. It just, I don't know. I just thought, no, there is something in this. There was definitely something. I did see a shift. And I was,
Mm-hmm.
as I was talking, as we've been having this conversation, I just did a quick search for African American cards,
Mm-hmm.
and my cards came up on the first page. So, I was like, there must be something in this, and it just made me think that sometimes you can take these little risks, and it wasn't actually a lot of money. I remember it wasn't like £30 or anything. I wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
done it if it was.
Right.
Um, but it was really, it was, yeah, I think if you can spend money wisely,
Yeah.
um and actually save yourself time, and your
Mm-hmm.
business can get further. With that, there's that saying, you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
uh, and I think that is really true. I really do.
Okay. Good. Well, that's good to know, and hopefully somebody else who's struggling with listing descriptions actually might want to check that out. Fiverr, again, most gigs start at $5 and it's worth it. And I know I've said this before in the podcast, but it's been a while. The intro music I play for the podcast and the outro music, Fiverr. I got
Mm.
someone on Fiverr to make those for me. And yeah, they're probably outdated by now, but I figure that the music is not a big deal. No need to change it. But sometimes you get some gems on Fiverr.
Yes, you do. You do. I
Yeah.
mean, logos that I had produced ages ago, things for that I do for YouTube, has a lot of stuff has comes from Fiverr. You really find some gems, and when I do find a gem, I try to keep that seller close by.
Yes.
I try to develop an ongoing relationship with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they always come in useful.
Hmm. So next, let's talk about and I am looking at the time, and we will get to just some additional things, but just also one of the things you mentioned was that uh, you found out that the market tended to like some things that you didn't think were going to be popular, and the things that you did think would be more popular um, weren't as much so. Has that changed what you offer or how you offer, or going forward what you want to do as far as the products that you offer, just now seeing how the market is responding to your products?
I think, yeah, it's made me think about how the images that I use. It's made me think, maybe there's something about having very simple images, because I think the
Mm.
products that I really thought would sell would be like the t-shirts and the jumpers, and I didn't really sell that many of them.
Mm.
So it made me wonder, okay, maybe I need to look at simplifying my images, because I think I started to do more lifestyle images, and I just
Mm.
got really confused by what to do. So I thought, maybe I need to look at that. Maybe that's why it's not selling, or maybe I need to look at the tags more.
Yeah.
The items that I was shocked by were the ornaments. I was really, really shocked, because I just threw them on because I was like, I need more listings. Let me just try. And I like the look of this product, and I've tested it, and I've tested the products, and I liked it.
Okay.
So, and also, actually, my cards surprised me, especially because they were being bought by strangers, like complete strangers, it made me feel like I need to have more confidence in the things that I personally make, or that I have more of my signature.
Yeah.
So it made me feel like actually my style, it validated my style. It made me think, oh, actually my styling and my aesthetic there is a space for it, there is a place for it. And it's made me think, oh, okay, maybe I can actually physically produce a product that will sell. It's made me a bit more confident.
That's
And
good.
next year I'm like, okay, what could I physically make that's more of me, even if I do like a small quantity, because it fills me with more confidence to
Yeah.
do that way when I'm physically packing the order.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, there are two products that I'm thinking of launching in summertime, that I'm like, okay, let's bite the bullet. The dream had always been for me to own my own clothing store. I studied clothing design at university. So I was like, actually, I think now's the time. Let's push. Let's keep going with this, and let's keep pushing and get the sewing machine out and really go for it now, because I've just been a bit more nervous before. So yeah, that's helped.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to know. So I think what I want us to do next is focus on optimizing your shop and your listings for search. So you've gotten some exposure to the listing descriptions, having them written by somebody who understands that. And now, while your inventory, I'm looking at your inventory, and it looks like you have 29 products. So that's still a manageable number. And so for those, I want us to focus next on making sure that they're fully optimized for search. And so these are the things that I want you to review in your listings. Make sure all of them use all 13 tags if you're not already doing that for all your listings. Okay. And then your categories. How confident are you, or were you, when you were adding the categories to them, that those were the right categories for them? Because if you weren't, then let's revisit that.
Yeah, I was completely, I think the things that I don't like doing on listing is categories. I was like, I'm confused.
Yeah.
And because you can only pick one, isn't it? And so I was like,
No, you can pick more.
how do you pick more then? Do you just put a comma?
Well, okay. So well, sorry, you can add subcategories. So you pick your
Okay.
main one, and then you narrow it down until you get to where the category that you think comes closest to what you're selling.
Okay.
And the reason the categories are important is because they act as additional tags
Okay.
for your listings. So if someone searches on a term that you might not have in your tags, but it's a category, your listings have an opportunity to show up in that search, even though it's not one of your 13 tags. And so when you add more specific categories, you're basically giving your listing additional tags. And so the more specific you get from, the broader ones, each one along the way is like a breadcrumb tag that your listing can get or will get shown up for. Does that make sense?
Because I guess what has been confusing me is because when I go to do category, for example, in a hoodie or a sweatshirt, I can only select hoodie. So, or hoodies and sweats. There isn't I'm not seeing another like subcategory or any of that. So underneath you've got primary color, secondary color, clothing style, fabric,
Yes.
pattern, all those things. But I don't see any other categories except occasion, celebration.
Okay.
And that's it.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes. So once you pick the narrowest category, what you're now talking about are attributes.
Okay.
And those also act like tags. So don't disregard the attributes either.
Okay.
So the attributes come into play when people do searches for, and someone might search for, okay, say it's Christmas time. They might search
Mm-hmm.
for red women's jacket, red
Mm-hmm.
women's sweater, because maybe they're looking for a sweater for a Christmas event.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where those come into play when you put in those categories. I mean, those attributes, because those will now act as additional tags for you, and you don't have to use those in your 13 tags. So if your item is suitable for an occasion or a certain body size, so let's say it's plus size, and it's you've made it for it's for Christmas, and there's some type of event or something, all those act as additional like one word tags, which
Mm-hmm.
you really shouldn't be using in your 13 tags anyway. Your 13 tags should be more long tail phrases, more long tail keywords that people might type in as a string. But then the attributes act as modifiers to the tags. So let's say you have long sleeved sweatshirts. I don't know if that would fit as a tag, but let's say long sleeved hoodie. One of the attributes you might pick is the color. Say it's red.
Yeah.
So somebody who is looking for a red hoodie, there would be a match because you've modified your long sleeved hoodie with the color red. So it gets included in that filter. If it's red and blue and you pick blue as your secondary color, it gets included in the filter. And I don't know if you've noticed the filters that Etsy has on the side for searches, but apparently they're saying, based on their user behavior, that shoppers are using those filters more just to weed down their results to what they're specifically looking for. And so that's why it's important to go and make sure that for each of your listings, you've included attributes. You might not be able to include, to fill out all the attributes, but as much as you can, try to do that, because when you're doing that, think about somebody who's looking for something that's in a very narrow search, and making sure that if your product fits into that category, then it shows up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And the attributes that you'll see will vary depending on what you're selling. So clothes will have different attributes than will jewelry, than will your ornaments and home decor, than will your Christmas cards.
Okay.
Because like for jewelry, someone might want to know what type of gems or stones or what have you use to make a specific necklace, whereas with a greeting card, that's irrelevant.
Yeah, right.
So just make note of that, and like maybe just clear your mind out when you're switching tracks between products and you're doing your attributes, because you will see different options.
Okay.
So you're going to review your tags, make sure all your products, each of your products is down to the closest subcategory, and then you're going to add attributes to them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And well, you already have your listings and your titles. How are you feeling about those? Do you think they're effective? If someone were to actually, let me go right to it, to your titles and take a look. Because one of the things with your titles people make the mistake of doing is giving the titles the name that you would call it. how do I explain this? So, and I'm looking at your titles, and I think yours are fine. You're not doing that. So, like, if someone, say, does a painting, and it's about, and it's a painting of a waterfall, and they would name, they look at the painting and they say, and they would call it something like, glassy waterfall. Well, most people who are looking for a painting of a waterfall, and maybe that's not a good example.
Or it's like, is it like something like when if I was selling a t-shirt, I'd be like, oh, beautiful t-shirt with picture of a smiley face. So it's not like it's not searchable terms, they're not keywords, it's just a lovely title, but it's not going to show up on the search necessarily.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So people are more likely to search for t-shirt of, or let's see, like, what would you put on a t-shirt?
I'd put
funny t-shirt.
Yeah, or graphic tee. That's probably usually quite a big popular tag.
Yes,
that people
exactly. So you want to put what people are most likely to search for first in your title. The first 60 characters are the most important. So you put like the broader, more searchable term first, and then you can narrow it down to something more specific, after that first one. So I see one that says funny Christmas shirt. That's great, because that's likely what somebody is going to type into the search. And then, your next descriptor can be a bit more specific to that particular shirt, like, falling Santa, black Santa, that's a bit more specific. But somebody coming in looking for a funny Christmas shirt is first going to type up funny Christmas shirt, and then it gets narrower from there. So I think your headings are not your headings, what do I call them? Your titles are good. And just don't overstuff them. Really, the first 60 characters are what shows up first and what's most important. So as long as you get the most important ones within the first 60 characters, you're good.
Okay, cool. I'll think about 60 characters.
Yeah, they don't have to be long and unwieldy. You don't have to stuff everything in there, because it's going to get cut off anyway. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And as far as shop optimization, I know last time we talked about you filling out sections. So your about sections, your about section, your shop policies, etc. Did you get all those done?
Yes. The only thing I think I haven't done is I think I didn't do the shop policies. I think I'm trying to remember. So yeah, I'll go back and have a look at that one again.
Okay.
But I think, I got majority of it done. Okay. The reason why I think I need to go and have a look at it again is because somebody placed an order. Or no, she contacted me before she sent the order, and she was like, "Oh, I'm in the UK. Will this item arrive in time?" And I was like, "What? Yeah, of course. I'm in the UK." And then she was like, "No, but in your shop it says you're in America." I was like, "What?" Like, so I had to go back. And then I was like, where did she see that? So I wasn't sure. I did correct it, but I can't remember where she saw it. But I know that it was there, that it said I was based in America. I was like, that is really odd, because I don't remember selecting that. But it might be something that was automated that perhaps I didn't actually fill out or change. So that makes me, now that you're talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, let me just double check. I know I changed it because I remember.
Yeah, I see now. It says London, UK, United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So definitely it's been changed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But,
and that might have been remember we walked through the initial setup and going through that page of selecting. Well, I mean, we talked it through. So it might have been one of those settings that automatically defaults to the United States, and maybe you just needed to uncheck or check something. I don't know, but it's fixed now. I can see that.
Yeah. So I was really happy when she told me. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's really odd. So I changed it really promptly.
Yeah.
That was good. And then also I hadn't placed an order with Etsy for a long time, as in I hadn't shopped on Etsy for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd ever done it. I don't think I'd ever bought anything on Etsy. No, that's not true. I bought 2 rings from Etsy.
Okay.
Um, but I didn't remember receiving any dispatch. Yeah, I know I lie. I bought jewelry before, but I never received a note from the suppliers, because I remember actually contacting them to say, you've this is quite a high expensive, like I bought vintage rings, engagement ring.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I was like, this is quite expensive, you know, it's an engagement ring. It's a lot of money. And I was expecting some level of, service, and I didn't hear anything. So I remember sending a message to say, hello, is is everything okay? So recently I decided to buy something for some leaving present rather than just going to Amazon. I bought it
Mm-hmm.
through Etsy,
Nice.
and partly to kind of see what other people were doing and how their other service was. And I think I noticed that I think that's when I realized that you can do an automated thank you note, because I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is really nice, but I think this sounds a bit more like she'd done this before or copied and pasted a little bit, not in an awful way, but I just thought, oh, so I was like, oh, she must be automating some of this, because they've got a high
Yes.
volume of orders.
Yep.
Oh, that's what made me think, okay, that's where I'm heading. So how can I do that? So yeah, that was really useful. It was a good exercise. If
Yeah.
it's something I would recommend people to do.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up again because I did want to mention that. Did we talk about snippets in your messages?
No, and that's what I said. That's how I found the
Yeah,
snippet. Actually,
that's most likely what they're doing is using snippets. So what you can do is go back and see if there were if you've had a lot of communication with your buyers over the last few months. See if there's something, some question you've been answering quite a bit, and create a snippet for that. But also, for sure, create the snippet that will be triggered when someone buys something. The thank you for your purchase. I'm going to start working on it now, or what have you, because
uh
that does help with customer service a lot. It makes people feel like you're on it.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'd really, yeah, I'm gonna try and do that. Definitely, definitely.
Okay. All right. So you have some walking papers for the coming weeks, and hopefully it won't be too overwhelming with work and all that to try and work on these things. And I think because your inventory is right where it is, hopefully it will be manageable until the next time we talk. And do you plan to add more inventory, or do you plan to just keep it around where it is for now?
So because a lot of the product that I have at the moment is Christmas based, so
Mm-hmm.
I have now realized that I I think I have to deactivate the listings and then put new
Why?
listings. Well, I'm just wondering. I don't know, because they will like, because who's going to be buying Christmas cards after Christmas? That was what was in my head. I was like, okay, so
Um, I don't think I would deactivate them. I mean,
okay,
yes, for sure the sales will go down, but um at least let them run their course. Let them run the 4 months.
okay. Well, I
Yeah.
to figure out how to run it, and then I've got to now use this time. I finish work thankfully on the 18th of December, so next week Friday. So my plan was, okay, now let's use this time to design new products so that I can create new listing. But all the print on demand stuff, I'm going to redesign so that it's not. I probably will have a lot more listings the next time we speak. So I'm going to do a lot more print on demand and see what I can do in terms of, I've got some designs already ready to go that will be for the new year. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm hoping to do a lot, initially do some print on demand until I can get my hands on my own, I guess, products, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I think, when I talked to Lee about just her process after she brought, her own printing, and I'm sure, I know it was definitely a financial investment. But I think things did take a turn for the better, just bringing it in. Her products were, of a higher quality, because she was now in charge of the quality control and the standards. And so, I think it was a good turning point for her. But, everything in its own time.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, great, Suze. I'm so glad we got to do this and that you're making progress. I hope you're feeling comfortable and just a bit more at ease with all of this.
Definitely, I am. I'm feeling much more like, I feel like this has made my year even more beautiful. Like this whole process, I'm like, yes, I sold something. It's such a great achievement to me. It's like,
Yes.
I sold it, and I don't even know who these people are, but they
that's
bought
the
it and
best part.
happy.
It's like some stranger wants something I made.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
It really is the best. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really happy about it. So and thank you, because this conversation's enabled me to reflect. I think definitely as creatives, you have this tendency to just keep making stuff, and you don't give yourselves enough time to kind of stop and take it in. And and that gives you enough energy to keep going. So yeah, I'm really blessed to have this conversation. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you are. I'm quite enjoying this too. I have to say, it doesn't feel like work or, oh, I have to talk to Rube, to Suze. I'm like, oh no, I quite enjoy it because, one, I like the excitement of building something new, and I like that you're seeing returns on the time that you're putting in. So it's fun for me as well. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I know I've heard from, some people who have listened to the other episode and are looking forward to following your journey as well. So I'm glad that other people are getting not just enjoyment, but also education and learning through it too for themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like a reality TV Etsy. Like people
Till
are
we
able to
start fighting
have the
and pulling hair and
Oh
throwing
no, I hope that never
glasses.
happens.
No,
I'm
we
not
won't
into
get
that
to
part.
that.
No.
All right. So for anyone who wants to check out Suze's Etsy shop and follow along, it's Ruby Suze Art. That's RUBY SUZ, or Z as they say in the UK. SUZEART. And I will definitely link to it in the show notes for this episode. And Suze and I will continue this conversation as she grows her shop. So stay tuned for more episodes and keeping up with Suze's progress. Suze, thank you so much for taking time out to chat with me again. I look forward to seeing how things go after the next interim and after you implement what we've talked about. And I'm excited for your journey.
Thank you. And I can't wait to speak to you again.
All right. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back with another episode next time. If you would like to be my guest on the podcast, you can go to convome.com and just click on the Be My Guest tab, and that will send a message to me and I will follow up with you after that. Please forgive me if it takes a while to get back to you, but I will eventually get back to you. I go through everything myself, so sometimes it takes a while. If you would like to connect with me outside of the podcast, right now Instagram is probably the best place to do that, and you can connect with me at Convo Podcast.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.